Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with a bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Twisted and Twilight multiplayer action. And the battle you're about to witness was one of several mighty duels that I got to square off against the wonderful Rubber Duck of War. And in this game, we're going to be rocking some Wood Elf against Skaven shenanigans. And of course, there's been all sorts of talk about how the meta might shift now that the DLC is dropping, how the Wood Elves might be shaken up, and which units will really swing the tide. Shall it be Stags, Zoets, Blade Singers, perhaps Ariel, or maybe the Sisters of Twilight? Well, I would say no. It is going to be, without a doubt, the Vanguard Treeman. Yes, the Vanguard Treeman. You heard that correctly. Every single tree unit on the Wood Elf roster can now Vanguard. It's no longer Dryads and Branch Wraiths. Literally every tree. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-meter tall tree man. You are sneaky enough to close the gap on your opponent. And so we're going to be trying to play a little bit of a thematic army here. A full-blown Drycha build, rocking a horde of very angry forest ladies, as well as a mob of even angrier trees just towering over the battlefield. And trying to take advantage of that newfound positioning advantage. So covering the build here, as you can see, it is a whole bevy of different colors. Lord here, Drycha. Now Durthu can in fact Vanguard now, as can an Ancient Tree Man, but for this battle specifically, I did want to test out Drycha. I do think she's going to be a bit of an interesting character and potentially a decent pick, because she does have a decent Lore of Shadows. She's a fairly cheap character with passable combat stats and some nifty supporting ability. So going over to Kate here, we can see I did bring Rouse to Wrath. This allows her to summon a unit of Dryads, so great for disruption and harass. Keep in mind, you could potentially bring this alongside an Amber Wizard, or I should say, a Lord Beastcaster. And although this has been changed to now summon an Eagle, it does mean you can double summon as the Wood Elves. She also does have Enfeebling Foe, which we brought here as our soul spell from Lord of Shadows, because the main focus here is going to be on the Branch Wraith as our spellcaster, but let us debuff enemies a good bit. We also got the Fang of Tallroth. Now this is her unique item. It's kind of basically what it is the Lich Staff that Grandpa Katep gets whenever you cast. Your opponent takes plus 15 ability recharge time. In hindsight, probably not the best choice here, given that, well, I only had Enfeebling Foe, so I'm not going to be spamming spells all that often, but I didn't really think about that when I was choosing her. I hadn't quite decided my spells. Besides that, Drycha does have passable combat stats, of course, the usual physical and missile resist that you would expect of a tree, and more importantly, she does have a special ability here, Fanatical Resolve, and this is a effect that comes into play as she takes damage, kicking off as she loses 25% health, and then increasing for every 25% health she loses, maxing out at a whopping 15 melee attack and 15% weapon damage for all nearby units when her HP is below 25%, which is pretty bonkers. When you think about that, that means your Dryads could potentially get massive buffs. If your opponent's trying to snipe out Drycha, means your tree can get massive buffs, and all your other units, even tree men, will get some decent buffs, because plus 15 melee attack is bonkers. Alongside her, we did bring a Branch Wraith. I did want a lot of heal support for my trees, of course, as well as the very wonderful Shield of Thorns, because honestly, Shield of Thorns stacked on top of the base physical resist of Tree Spirits can really make them tanky. Obviously, Skaven have a lot of magic missiles, but against their melee troops, it can help you sustain well. We also have Call of the Woods to buff up our melee line here, and it's going to help these Tree Men especially fight a lot more efficiently. Besides that, well, our main force is composed of Dryads. These ladies did gain 7 speed this patch, which makes them much more capable of closing the gap, also makes them able to overrun backlines much more efficiently. And wanting to go all in on that tree build, I actually invested in chevrons here because I didn't really have anywhere to spend it elsewhere. Several units of tree men are towering over top of them as well. Now, these bad boys did get a significant rework as well, losing some melee defense, but making significant gains in the weapon strength department. Going up to 86 weapon strength from what was previously like a measly 52, I believe. So pretty massive buffs there. Melee attack went up by 1, so nothing too crazy there. But the offensive buffs for these guys are huge. Much more capable damage dealers, especially against light troops. And we're going to be seeing just how well they can perform against the Skaven mainline here. And of course, the 2 tree men, really the main punching power of this build. Standing atop the Wraiths of the Frozen Heart to prevent my opponent from escaping with their Frostbite. The new regiment around Dryads, very potent. They got Frenzy, they got Frostbite. And of course, Veteran C9 stats. So these ladies are just nasty. Now for my opponent here, Duck did bring a in some ways conventional composition, but with a handful of small twists, or maybe major twists on the usual formula. So going over the composition here, we do have the Avalanche Mortars in anticipation of Wood Elf missile play and skirmish play, and yeah, these guys are going to be disappointed. There is some infantry, of course, with the Dryads, but these guys do not have much to shoot at with no Waywatcher play and no Deepwood Scout play. But a very powerful unit that could probably delete most of my infantry line quite efficiently, and we can already see them teeing off those very, very powerful shots. For the hero core, we do have Throt the Unclean alongside a Warlock Engineer as well as a Chieftain towering above the battlefield there, providing the Guardian aura. And that does mean Throt's going to be up to 25% physical resist. Too bad that does nothing for him against the tide of magic damage dealing trees. Thrawn himself does get Master Controller, which allows him to buff nearby troops with what's essentially a hold of the line. He also does get Creature Killer, which gives all his nearby troops a bonus Rich Large, critical against the trees, no doubt, and Immune to Psychology should be very nifty there as well. Beast Spec to some of those Rat Ogres could definitely help add some punch in critical moment, and then Remoldered for heals. And this is going to be very critical for the Chieftain, who otherwise isn't the tankiest of beasts, but 4,500 HP means he's got a decent amount of heal potential, so you can definitely hit him with a Remoldered, buff him up, heal him a good bit, and get some massive value there. Alongside him, the Warlock Engineer has Howling Warp Gale, once again probably anticipating some flying play, and that's not going to happen. As well as Warp Lightning, probably anticipating some infantry and cav, and yeah, that's not happening either, because it's just a horde of angry trees. So a little unfortunate there for this little ratty, and I'm not entirely sure how much he's going to be able to get done, but perhaps we'll see some fun spell casting action regardless. Finally, the Chieftain, obviously coming with Guardian Arrow, which is useless against a horde of trees. He also does have Power Grab, which means that if I do snipe out Throt by any chance, my opponent is going to get a boost to leadership. This is really an awesome thematic ability for the Skaven. Really something that, in my opinion, spices them up and makes them a lot of fun to play against. Or to play as, I should say, as well, because it does give you sort of backup if your lord dies. We also do have the Shield of Distraction, which derails my troops by 5 melee attack. Honestly, it does undo the Call of the Wood, so not bad at all. Frontline of Stormmen and Clan Rats, so that should hold for quite a bit, and will beat up on the Dryads for sure. Should hold the Treemen as well, since Treemen don't have much AP. I should say Treekin. And then a few Wolf Rats on the flanks. These guys looking to, once again, flank and get into archers that don't exist. And you can see Duck here is kind of scouting around, looking for any opportunity, and there just is none. Avalanche Mortars, though, just annihilating the poor Dryads, chewing off about half their HP with every shot. But you can see here, Poison Wind Globes they was using to defend the front line against these Dryads are being disrupted by our summon. So the Malevolent Dryads are Drycha's unique summon. These ladies do, in fact, have Frenzy, unlike normal Dryads, so they do hit a bit harder. They've got a bit more charge bonus, though not much, and quite a bit more melee attack. So they are, in fact, quite a bit more dangerous. That's really the only difference between them and normal Dryads. But we are trying to disrupt these Poison Globes and shut that missile play down. In the meantime, Avalanche Mortars here supporting the Clan Rats and doing insane amounts of damage, just eradicating the Dryads, but simultaneously annihilating their own Clan Rats. So kind of a problem there. And in the meantime, these Dryads here able to sneak around the flank and look for that disruption. Warp Lightning is going down, but yeah, not too much to be done here. The Treeman with Shield of Thorns is basically impervious to any of this non-magical damage. He will just beat the crap out of these units. He don't care. Drycha is in there as well, just slapping down those Stormmen left and right. And it is a monster mash here, as the Chieftain does try to go toe-to-toe with the two Treemen and is just getting slapped, birch-slapped over here by those very angry trees. So just not having a good time. Poor guy. Over here in the meantime, the Firebark Elders as well as a unit of Treemen do over on the back line, compromising these unfortunate Poison Globes alongside the summoned Dryads. More Dryads over here just trying to pursue, but unfortunately the heavy armor on the Avalanche Mortars as well as the Poison Wind Globes makes them very resilient to Dryads. Dryads just do not have the HP pool and the damage output to really chew through them fast enough. So that's incredibly frustrating here, trying to shut down the Avalanche Mortars and getting screwed over hard. Fortunately, though, and this is where this build is going to start to struggle, we have a lot of monstrous infantry. Now, some of them are falling. These Treekin over here definitely got isolated, and supporting Rat Ogres are taking them out. I did, in fact, forget to mention, we've got the Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep here, trying their best to stop the Firebark Elders, but Regiment Renowned Rat Ogres not able to hold up. But problem is there's a lot of anti-infantry here, and no infantry left in sight. So these poor Rat Ogres are really the last unit all that capable of dealing with all this monstrous infantry, and now the Firebark Elders, there isn't much to stop them. Only perhaps attrition, but besides that, we are going to see a Malevolent Dryad summon, disrupting the backline here, disrupting those Poison Globes again, trying to tear them down. But you can see these guys are not bleeding models. 36 models, 100 armor, they're just tanking it all too well. But there isn't that much that Duck can do against the Tide of Treeman. Now, yes, he is focusing them down, doing an excellent job here, focusing the Treekin down one by one, trying to bring them down. Avalanche Mortars here doing their best to whittle down the tree mob as well, but probably wasting, honestly, their ammo doing more friendly fire than fire to intended targets. So definitely, I think, a bit of a misplay there. And in the meantime, getting pursued by the Dryads, who are just not letting them go, taking advantage of their newly buffed speed to really, really pressure this crew. So unfortunately, Thronati is going to get some meaty swings in there, as is the Chieftain, and start some routes. So that's going to be unfortunate for those Dryads. Treekin, in the meantime, taking advantage of their shoot-up weapon strength to beat the crap out of Poison Globes, making those poor scaredy rats run, and just book it from the tree man. These guys do, however, have 43 speed when scurry away procs, so they're able to outrun the trees, which kind of sucks. And to get the last chem bomb in on the Dryads. That appears to have, oh no, it hit these guys. They are going to whittle down quite a bit of HP and probably get wiped there. Hounds, in the meantime, have nowhere to go. 1 kill and really no targets. They're cleaning up the routing tree men, but I don't really care about those guys all that much, because what really matters right now is this pocket of trees that's just staying alive and tanking through everything with help of Earthblood. Tree men over here just towers above the battlefield, tanking the Rat Ogre summon and not giving a crap. And although Remoldered and Creature Killer has gone down, the Chieftain is not taking advantage of it. And the Tree Man is kind of able to just sit here and persevere, use that 56 melee defense to just shrug off the pressure. Keep in mind, this guy, he's got 110 armor, so non-AP damage is largely negated, physical resist, and on top of that 56 melee defense, which means that Rat Ogres are basically never hitting. They have almost no chance to hit. Even the Chieftain has very little chance to hit, even with Creature Killer in the mix there. So definitely a difficult situation. That said, the Tree Man is starting to suffer, just surrounded by so many targets. It is going to become a problem for him, and he will definitely take a beating. Though another Earthblood goes down, healing the pocket here and helping our troops persevere. Throt, in the meantime, is going to back away, but with Throt out of the fight, he's not providing any support auras here. You can see the poor Chieftain is going to be forced to flee and just running away for dear life there, as Avalanche Mortars rain down in the distance, trying to wipe out those Treemen. Stormmen, obviously decent against Elven Infantry, which is probably what Rubber Duck expected, but against these trees, they're just getting overwhelmed. Warplaning there going down, as the trees continue their Birch Slappery, just wrecking the Stormmen, and the Stormmen are getting even more wrecked by their artillery, just straight up having a bad time. As the Tree Brigade plows onward. And at this point, the game is definitely entering its last legs. Although Balance of Power is still still has some room technically for Duck to come back into this. The simple fact is most of his troops that remain on the battlefield are anti-infantry specialists and are basically going to be helpless against units like Firebark Elders and Treekin and Treemen and all those units. So despite that, Duck is giving it a fair go here, trying to focus out one unit at a time, and succeeding at doing so. The Treekin here are forced to rout. Obviously, the magic damage does bypass the resistances, and we're seeing the rout off there, but the Treemen are just going to be pivotal, and with the supporting chaff gone for the rats, there's only going to be so much this remaining heroic core can really do. Drycha is obviously going to be in there. The Firebark Elders are going to be in there. And the Treemen, although getting peppered, getting harassed, and of course Throt swinging in there with his bonus versus large, doing some damage, but ultimately terror and damage is just going to be too much. Even the Chieftain trying to swing back in isn't going to be enough. With just how much healing we've been able to put out, and with how little damage these units are able to do. Poor Chieftain there, just straight up not having a good time, doing his very best, but getting beaten down in tremendous fashion. And in fact does fall. The Bonebreaker just collapsing to the ground there, and it is going to be a GG at this stage. Some courageous Poison Wind Globes trying to close the distance. Throt here fighting tooth and nail to get a measly morsel out of these trees. Perhaps a sliver of bark would do him some good, but he really doesn't stand a chance. The Branch Wraith, of course, still at near full health, as well as Drycha, who's now coming in. And Drycha has some very solid combat stats for a fairly cheap caster, which is what she is. 73 melee attack with decent weapon strength means that she can slap someone like Throt around a decent amount, do some good damage there. At this point, the Poison Wind Gloves just cannot deal with the trees. The damage they do is laughable, and it is going to be a tear out for the poor rats. So, well played to Rubber Duck. A lot of fun there, seeing some of the new units taking the field for both sides. But I do think this build highlights how strong the Treeman Vanguard can be. Being able to move a traditionally super slow unit and position it right in your opponent's face is huge, and it really means that you can compromise, for example, Skaven gun line rather well. Now, in this situation, Skaven have what I would call the Skaven mortars, especially, but also Poison Wind Globes, are just kind of overtuned against infantry. And with the Avalanche Mortar here, as well as the Poison Wind Mortar Globes, I really wouldn't recommend bringing much, if any, infantry as Wood Elves against Skaven. However, I do think you could definitely take advantage of the general gist of this build, of this anti-large, or of this large Vanguard build. And just, if you avoid the thematics, you could go for a different take on, a slightly different take on the composition and something more competitive, and actually make some decent usage of these units. So if we go hop out here into custom battles, potentially if we took that build that I just ran, and rather than trying to go all in on the going all in on the thematics, we could instead bring a composition that is a bit more competitive. So, for example, we could still bring Firebark Elders. I don't think Firebark Elders are really necessary against Skaven. They don't really have much fire damage, so probably not worth it in practice. But if you wanted to, you could skimp out, bring like 4 tree men or 4 treekin. Still bring your 2 tree men. You still got Drycha for the disrupt. And unfortunately, we got custom funds here, but large funds there. And then that still leaves you with 4,600 points. Of course, we do want that Branch Wraith for those sweet AoE buffs. You can strip down some of the abilities there. Keep Earthblood, of course. And still have 3,900 HP. This is a very cheap character when you think about it. And at this point, you can still pitch in... a unit like Glade Riders with Spears. You could throw in some Hagbane tips to provide some poison support. Perhaps throw in some, or perhaps you could roll things back here and even bring some Lost Sylvan Knights if you wanted to. If you can remove most of the magic damage from your opponent, they will run roughshod over the Skaven. Or just bring Wild Riders. You could double up on Wild Riders here. Or cheapen out, bring Unshielded Wild Riders here. Something like that. Just bring a very heavy cavalry corps to support and disrupt for your Treekin, and rely on the Treekin to beat the brakes off your opponent. And I think you are in a decent position that way. There's just a lot of synergies you can pull there, and a lot of possibilities you can pull there. You could toss in a Waystalker to provide some range pressure. But regardless how you want to approach it, I do think that Vanguard tree play can work, because the trees provide you with a very stable front line and anchor. Especially now that they dish out a lot of damage, they can actually deal with frontline trash. And in the meantime, you can flank and surround and just spank your opponent from all sides. So I do think that's going to be some neat synergy there. Regardless, well played to Rubber Duck. I do think my only real critique for his army, obviously, was trying to experiment with some new units, and it simply didn't work out. But I do think a little more anti-large is probably necessary against the Wood Elves. You probably do want some sort of Giselles or Warp Lightning Cannons or something along those lines, just to pressure down the Wood Elf the Wood Elf large units. Because besides trees, of course, Wood Elves are getting a bunch of other big units this match, especially Zoids and Great Stagonites, and you may see these in the matches, especially Great Stagonites. I think with their very high charge bonus and good damage to infantry, I could see them being fairly common here. So it's something I'd be wary of, and probably bring a bit of extra anti-large nowadays against the Woodies. But that's just my 2 cents there. Well played to Rubber Duck. Definitely go check out his channel. I'll be leaving a link to in the description below. As usual, leave your thoughts, opinions, comments, and critiques down below. I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.